Hi, and welcome to C. Myers Live. My name is Sally Myers, and I'm a principal at C. Myers Corporation.
And my name is Dan Myers, and I'm a vice president with C. Myers Corporation.
And today we're here to talk about talent. It is top of mind for just about every business sector. And talent and making sure that there's appropriate development, retention, and acquisition of the right type of talent. So, Dan, what are you seeing as you're working with different businesses?
So, with different businesses and calling out as we're discussing perhaps strategy or strategy implementation, is the need or the risk that they're not going to have talent. And so, what we're asking folks to do or different businesses to do is look at your value proposition, or do you have a value proposition, not just for your customers, but for your potential employees too, and how that might match up, or maybe it doesn't match up. You might need to do something different to address the vacuum that's going to exist with talent.
Well, and on the value proposition for potential employees, but even current employees, because in a lot of the financial institutions that I'm talking with at the C-suite, they're having people move, key people move from their organization. And I say talking at the C-suite, but we're also seeing quite a bit of movement at the C-suite level. So, what's the value proposition that you have to offer as an employer, and articulate that value proposition? So, we're getting people to start articulating that. That's a step. But another step is, what is the type of talent that you're going to need going forward? And how does your value proposition fit or resonate with the type of talent that you're going to need going forward? So it can be a chicken and an egg. Start with your current value proposition, but be thinking, what do I need in the future? And then how might you need to change your current value proposition so that you can retain and attract and develop the type of people that you need in your organization?
No, absolutely. And it's a key piece. I believe in the business model optimization, as businesses going forward. And I think it's important to discuss or to start having different organizations think through, similar to what they would from a technology roadmap or a strategy roadmap, what is the talent roadmap? And what are the gaps? What do they need to do? What's the talent's going to be there? So it's a key component. And it's even more at risk now with a lot of organizations. The way you called it out, Sawyer, you just called out that, the C-suite is experiencing turnover. And so if you have turnover at the C-suite and then at the mid-management level and even the frontline staff, it can create a lot of non-value added time in an organization and really start to resonate with the customers as well too. So addressing this is going to be a battle. Talent's going to be a battle. And so there needs to be a good plan for it. You guys need to know that the organizations need to have a good plan, starting with that value proposition, constantly adjusting, I think is going to make sense.
And going about it in different ways than was done in the past, and getting very creative about what people, employees, may value going forward, which is could be very different than what was valued in the past, and doing the best you can as a leadership team to remove the judgment or the preconceived notions about what should be important as time goes on with respect to the talent and the development of talent. The other thing that is really important too is to sort out, not everybody wants a career, and that's okay. There will be people who want jobs and have other priorities, and they need to make sure that they get trained appropriately. But those who want different experiences that allow them to grow from a professional standpoint and even a personal standpoint, working with them and identifying what could be possible career paths, multiple options versus one vertical option. The responsibilities are changing. The siloed approach to running an organization is changing. Obviously, technology and delivery is changing so rapidly. May not even know the exact job or role that might be needed 5 years from now. But there are some things that you can get together as a leadership team and say, I'm not sure what the role is going to be, but I know we need a certain number of people that have specific types of characteristics. And so, Dan, what are some of those characteristics?
Yeah, so the two descriptors that came to my mind were innovation, critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the fast-paced environment, just the physical environment, but also the professional environment as well too. To me, from what I'm seeing, is critical thinking and innovation, but also somebody who wants to be part of something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different. The old adage, some people who are listening to this may not even know what a time clock is, but to punch the time clock, to type of thing, not just come in and do your 8 hours of work. Okay, just your busy stuff, but what is the organization actually doing, and how can that person actually contribute to the organization? And you know what? There's another piece too from a talent acquisition is, what does the company stand for? So there's the value proposition, but through the pandemic, we were fortunate enough to work with some places that did real relevant stuff within the community about supplying grants and things like that into the community for small businesses to stay afloat. And that resonated with a lot of employees with these organizations, that they stayed in there. So you could have a value proposition that you're going to be zero carbon emissions in so many years, and here's the path to get there. That's an example of one that might help with recruitment and retention and development just as much, if not more so, than compensation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you're looking at that.
Yeah. And I think too, delivering on the value proposition, however it's stated, again, making sure it aligns with what you need going forward from a talent perspective. And then talent development takes time. It takes intention. It's not something that happens accidentally. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of patience. And as we go through with our team development and our senior leadership development, it's interesting. We've noticed that it seems like the higher up people get in an organization, the less direct feedback they get, and they don't get actionable feedback. So what we hear is what's really important to them is, I want to know. Mm-hmm. I want to know, yes, what I'm doing really well so I can keep on doing those things, but I also want to know how I can grow and expand and enhance the value that I'm adding to the team and the organization. And if somebody can't or won't tell me in a way that I can take it and move into action, that's going to stop my growth. And so, well, that sounds like that's easier said, or that is easier said than done, because a lot of people that we've run across are not comfortable with giving direct feedback because they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or don't want to have a conflict. And so that direct feedback in a timely fashion is really a gift of growth.
It is. And it's like the practice thing. We know it works, but people feel uncomfortable doing it. So it's like the first time you're swinging a hammer or you're casting a fishing line into a lake, it's a mess, right? You're smashing your finger, you're hooking trees and all this stuff. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. And the focusing on the talent and the way you were describing, Sally, yeah, it takes effort. It takes time, but it can be fun. It's rewarding. To work with an organization that's focused on getting the right talent, keeping them, and has a, for lack of better terms, a mentorship program that's actively working. It's fun. They see it, and it's kind of like you're creating something that's going to start really developing and continue developing and helping out the organization, the community over years.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And
so it's the investment, that hard work up front actually, let me just repeat, becomes fun for not just the person being mentored, but also the mentor as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that goes also to people generally want to measure success. And so while that stuff's not instantly measurable, like earnings today or earnings by the end of the year, it's that building capacity, building the ability to to, like you said, the critical thinking, the strategic thinking, and then knowing how and when to move into action that aligns with the direction that the organization wants to go. And also, a lot of people love challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel a great sense of accomplishment when they're nudged beyond their comfort zone. And then they feel successful. Yeah, I did it. I moved on. I did something I've never done. So that means I have confidence. I can move on and do some other things and experience other things. And I may not be perfect, but that's that whole leadership mentality and the mentorship.
So here's, the way I look at it is leverage your staff to get their input and their feedback and what can be done differently. Along those lines, we'd like to look at, in my past life, we had this thing where the constant pursuit of removing issues of the frontline staff. And it was designed to help retain employees. Really what ended up happening is not just the retention, but the growth of the employees, they've been able to advance within the organization, but the material improvement and efficiencies, because they would tell us what was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they liked being asked. So this is that whole piece of the critical thinking. Present people with problems, challenge them to figure out if they can't think critically, get them a little training.
Yeah. And also the permission.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things too, is the permission to tell the people that can make a change, the leadership. Mm-hmm. Here's what we do that we shouldn't be doing. It's a waste of everybody's time. And it actually takes away from my job satisfaction. And it's okay having that open environment to say, as a leadership team, we need to change these things. But first, that people have to have the courage to tell you. And also, one more detail on that is really get them to think about at all levels, what are the workarounds that you do out of habit?
Yeah.
And there are tons of workarounds that people do out of habit, but they might think they're the only one doing it. But when you start adding up, if 50 people are doing 100, 600 people are doing it, man, detracts from the work environment. And to your point, it's not very efficient. And that time and energy can be used differently.
Yeah, no, you're right. You remind me of folks we were working with a few years ago, and we set the stage for the employees to talk openly with the C-suite, the executives, about what they were doing. And there's this one lady, she's up there writing out everything she does for this one process, and she turned around and looked at me, but also looked at the CEO and some other folks of the organization and said, "This entire process I do, where I spend 3 or 4 hours a day, is not adding value. It's a waste of time. Mm-hmm. But I'm being told I have to do it, and I don't understand why."
Nice.
And so those conversations are really good, and it's an eye opener. I mean, to see that the people in the C-suite, their eyes just open up, and they started looking around and said, "Well, who else are we having do stuff that they don't need to be doing?" Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. You're right. So setting the stage for that dialogue to occur. Mm-hmm. But then also the C-suite, they got to move on it too. Mm-hmm. They can't they have to act. You have to act. You have to constantly be making the changes that are appropriate, of course.
Yeah. It's a war on talent, and it's not, we don't believe it's a short term.
No, it's long. It's here. Yeah.
It's here. And so getting really creative, thinking about how to develop differently. Mm-hmm. Thinking about the true value proposition, and are you living by your value proposition? Does it even resonate with what you want? So in order to know that, you have to think as a team, what are the characteristics that are going to be needed regardless of what the world brings. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about that, the ability to think critically, get creative, and then take action as appropriate.
My thought on this a few weeks ago was the employee experience is critical. Mm-hmm. But the talent development and setting the stage, it should, some of these things that we're talking about, value propositions and how they line up with the target market you're hiring and retaining, should it be part of a broader strategic discussion mm-hmm. and followed through on?
Yeah.
How do you fall through? But going into this, just we want people to know this is not the light switch at all.
Mm-mm.
There's not even a wall to put a light switch in right now. So you just got to think through it, develop, have a plan, and make your course corrections accordingly.
Yeah, and I'll add, and we've said this in previous podcasts as well, you can have a great strategy, but in the end, and even have awesome technology, in the end, people and cohesive, high functioning teams of people are going to make the difference.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for your time today. I hope you got some little tidbits of things that you might be able to experiment with at your own organization. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call. Thank you.